Thank you. We're going to do two types of prayers. First, I'm going to start off by reading a chapter of Psalm in Hebrew and just translate one verse and tell you why I chose that Psalm to begin to open our service, our memorial service today. Shir Amalis LeDavid Lulei Adonai Shehoya Lanu Yomar No Yisrael. Lulei Adonai Shehoya Lanu B'kum Aleinu Adam Azay Chaim B'Leunu B'Chareis Apam Bonu. Azay Hamayim Shtafunu Nach La'avar Al Nafshenu Azay Avar Al Nashenu Hamayim Hazidonim Baruch Adonai Shalei Nesanu Teref Nishaneim Nafshenu Kitzipar Nimlata Mipach Yekshim HaPach Nishbar V'Anachnu Nimlatnu Ezreinu B'Shem Adonai Yeseshemayim Ba'oretz. There's one beautiful verse. Our soul is like a bird which had escaped from the fowlers and the snare. The snare broke and we escaped. How many times do we feel that we are trapped and we are snared? And here we have a time we know that God looks out for us and gives us the redemption that we need and the salvation and the help that we need to free ourselves from our material and mundane challenges. The second prayer I would like to make is an unusual one. It involves food. So, one of the things we do to remember to give a gift to someone who's passed is to do a mitzvah, a good deed in their memory. One mitzvah that we can all do right now is recite a blessing, recite a bracha on food. So I want you to join me with this prayer. We're going to start first with a cookie or a pastry or a croissant, and repeat after me. I'll say it word for word. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Ha'olam Borei Minei Mizonot. Now join me with a drink, some water, and repeat after me. We'll say the blessing that we do over drinks. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Ha'olam Shehakol Nihiyah Bidvaro. Thank you, and may this serve to elevate the soul of David ben Shlomo Mervyn Fogel.
Then we'll start with the video if you can get started.
Thank you, Rabbi, very much. And for those of you who are the members of the fellowship here, and for those of you who may not be, but who are familiar with the Serenity Prayer, we might just say the Serenity Prayer for the benefit of those that are with us and those that are no longer here. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. You know, and I know, as I said earlier, I know Mervyn will be here and loves to hear people talking about him and be the center of attraction. And I can attest to that because I spent 36 years running around with him, listening to all this stuff and knowing that much of it was true. So what we'd like to do this evening, rather than spend all our time mourning his passing, is to spend the rest of the evening celebrate the years and the time that we had with him, which was a whole lot more fun than watching what's taken place in the last few days. And finally, after that, everyone, we hope, will get an opportunity to express their thoughts if they have thoughts and feelings that they might like to talk about during the course of the meeting. And at this point, I'd like to introduce and bring up to the mic someone who probably, and I think pretty much without any difference of opinion, is someone who probably knows Mervyn any better than anybody else, and that's his youngest sister. Now, can you just imagine being the younger sister to someone like Mervyn Fogel? Now, can you just imagine that? Marcia must have had her hands really full. But to tell you this herself, I'm about to turn the mic over to Marcia. And with that, Marcia, please come up and join the rest of it.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Great to see you all. I've already met some of you before, and some of you were at the grounds just before, so I'm going to save your ears, and I'm not going to make my whole speech again. That'll be overkill. But I'm going to just make a little quote from it, and I'll tell you a couple of funny stories about Mervyn. Okay. I'll start off, third paragraph. As his kid sister, apropos, an insignificant and lowly person in his golden orbit, I watched in admiration and adoration how, as a young man, Mervyn was already living life in the fast lane, almost like watching an action movie in fast-forward mode. To my mind, and to many others, it seemed Mervyn had it all. A film star, good looks, many said he looked like Roger Moore, which I think he did, but he was better looking. Charisma, flair, dynamism, and a vision which completely changed our family's business. His rise in the ranks was meteoric, having started by sweeping the floors. What else would you expect of him but beautiful girls, sports cars, beautiful clothes, and always the centre of attention, and his vast number of friends. Added to all this, he was a talented drummer, which many of you probably wouldn't know, a true jazz aficionado, and a very accomplished artist when he sat down long enough to paint. He was a good student, interested in everything, intelligent, and above all, as I mentioned above, he had the most fantastic sense of humour. And at times he was rather inclined to laugh uproariously at his own jokes that others weren't always able to hear the punchline. Some of his stories about his exploits and escapades were so outrageous and outlandish that it was difficult to believe that they were true, but they were true, I know that. Now just a couple of what I think to me were funny stories, which absolutely says it for me, what Mervyn was like as an older brother to a little sister. There was 7 years difference between us. I remember two outstanding memories of my childhood when I was 5 and Mervyn was 12. Our parents took us on a holiday to northern France, a place called Dinard. And it wasn't that long after the war. I remember we went on it must have been a Hercules aeroplane with the car and everything else. It was all very exciting. And in those days, parents always had their meals after the children had gone to bed. The children were not allowed to sit with the parents. And I was in the same room as Mervyn. Mervyn was in the bed next to me. And my parents had gone down for dinner. And Mervyn says, "I put a spider in your bed." With a big grin like this. I freaked out. I was screaming. I knew I was terrified of spiders. Anyway, the whole hotel was in an uproar. Mum and Dad came up. What's going on? They realised, because they knew Mervyn. They scolded him and went back down again to dinner. So what does he say? Needless to say, he says, "It's still there." Forget. I slept, I can see myself now, I slept with my legs underneath. I could hardly sleep, and he thought this was hugely, hugely funny. Anyway, that was him then. And then fast forward, another time, unfortunately when I was a kid I often had flu and colds, things like that, and had to stay at home and was very bored. So what I did in those days, I don't know whether any of you remember the mail order catalogues one could order from newspapers. So, mail order, you've got the catalogue at home, you ordered a bit like Amazon at home in a catalogue. And I decided as a gesture, which I thought was extremely generous and nice of me, to all my friends, I would order catalogues for all my friends. What a nice thing to do, what a nice little girl. Anyway, I was telling my parents this one night at dinner. I came down, having not been feeling very well. Mervyn was there, and telling them what I'd done. I thought I was very proud of myself. And Mervyn looks at me and he says, "You know you're going to go to prison for this. This is against the law. You're a criminal." I think I was all of about 8 or 9. Well, I was absolutely horrified. I went running upstairs, I burst into tears. I really thought the police were going to come any moment and take me away. Mervyn thought this was hugely amusing. I mean, these are just 2 examples of how he regarded me in those days. And I really was like a little fly on the wall for him. But later on, when I got married and I became very close with his then wife, Shula, the mother of my 3 nephews, and we grew much closer, and we grew closer and closer and closer. And Mervyn was the world for me. I always admired him, always loved him very much, always looked up to him. I thought he was really like a god. But you know, your eyes are open when you mature, you grow up, you see people more for who they are, and you love them more for who they are, who they really are. And Mervyn was a wonderful brother, very loving, very caring, loved my children, loved my husband, always very supportive of everything I did in my life. And I'll never forget him for that, and just look back at all those funny times, and really we had funny times. He was very funny. The times he had my mother and I under the table in hysterics with stories from school about his headmaster and the things he did. I mean, I said, you couldn't have done anything like that. He said, oh yes, all his stories were true. So that's just a little taster of what he was for me, but I loved him very much. I'm going to miss him terribly. I can't believe I'm never going to see him again. I'll see him in my dreams. I know he's going to come back to me. We'll talk maybe. Anyway, I'm sure he meant a lot to all of you as well. He really was a very, very special person. Anyway, that's really, I've got a lot to say, but it's not the time to say it now, and other people want to say things. I would like, however, at this point, I'd like to say a few words of thanks to a few people who have accompanied Mervyn and accompanied me on his, maybe the last year of his journey. First of all, Reed and Paul, who's not here at the moment, Steve. You've been the most wonderful, wonderful friends to Mervyn, and as such, to me, the boys, and our whole family. Thank you for everything you've done, and you've held my hand the last little while, Reed, and I'm so appreciative, and I'm going to miss you awfully, all of you actually. Marcia, sitting over there, Marcia, who looked after Judy, our wonderful Judy, who died 4 years ago, and Marcia was so devoted to her. She couldn't have done enough for her, and then she helped out with Mervyn, but that was a slightly more challenging problem, I think. And Sonia Cobrin. For those of you who don't know Sonia, you've missed out. She is just one of the most special people. I think Mervyn's magic worked in bringing her to me, to Mervyn, to help me and to help him during the last very, very difficult years. I can't thank you enough, Sonia. You really were my alter ego, and I couldn't have done it without you.
My pleasure.
Thank you. It's our pleasure too, to be with you. And Neil, who took over from Sonia, my wonderful nephew, who just lifted everything off of my shoulders, and Sonia's shoulders as well, and took over in the most efficient way and loving way, the way that he could show how much he cared for his father. And of course, the rabbi and his wonderful wife, Shana. I haven't got any words actually. We came in yesterday. This was all done in 24 hours. The flowers, the tablecloths, the catering, the video, you name it. I don't know how she does it. Where do you get your energy from, Shana? Where? Tell me. We'll buy into it. Thank you so much, Rabbi, for your kind words. And thank you to all of you. Somebody else I would like to say thank you to is Richie Cometer, who has been with my family now for how many years, Richie? 40 years? 35? 35 years. He's a lawyer and a loyal friend who helped Mervyn through many difficult years, and all of us as well. Thank you, Richie. And thank you to all of you for just being there with Mervyn, for Mervyn, experiencing Mervyn. And I hope his Spirit will help you, carry you through the future. I love all of you. Thank you very much.
There's not very much that I can say after that. You know, I've had the privilege of spending some time with Marcia over the last couple of months. Unfortunately, not in the circumstances I would have liked. I would have loved to have gone to some of her charity balls and things that she did in Tel Aviv and some of the other stuff, but we were blessed to have her over here for a while. And, you know, having laughed with her and cried with her and trying to put all this together, I've realized the strength in the Fogel family. You know, and I'm blessed and I feel happy to have not only Marcia here, but to have James, Neil, and Jeremy here. Jeremy, whom I've known for a long, long time, for almost, that must be 35 years since he was living in London. Mervyn was proud of his boys, and he talked to me about his boys all the time. You know, I never seemed to go without a day when the boys weren't being talked about. And you know, I can understand that. I've had probably the privilege of working with Neil, who was put in a situation that wasn't of his own making. But he did, you know, he did things perhaps that none of the rest of us could do during a time when it was difficult to do it. And for that, I know I and so many of others of you are grateful, because it gave Mervyn a little bit more time than otherwise he might have had. So we thank all three of you for being here. We'll miss you, and I know that, somehow, I'm going to have to get over to Tel Aviv and spend some time with Marcia, because he's not finished with me yet. I can tell you with that. So thank you all for that. We're going to have a few words from someone a little bit different than Marcia right now, and someone whom you never would expect. And that's my dear friend Lisa McGovern. You know, Mervyn, we've been spending all this time talking about what a bon vivant Mervyn was, and all these folks that he knew, and the things that he did, and and so on and so forth. And there are some pictures up there of my 60th birthday, where Mervyn and three others of us are sitting in black tie, having a good time and doing all these other things. But Lisa's got a different story. Now, if you can imagine Mervyn sitting on a horse with cowboy boots on and a cowboy hat and jeans, well, that's Mervyn. Because Mervyn wasn't just what you thought he was. Mervyn was many more things than we could conceive about. And with that, I'd like to ask Lisa to come up and please say a few words.
Good afternoon. I hope you can hear me. I should be good at this, but I'm really not. I just want to say a little bit about having met Mervyn and some of the things I experienced with him over the years. As a lot of you said, Merv was one of a kind. I met him about 20 years ago at the St. Joan of Arc meeting in Boca Raton, the AA meeting, with my late husband, Gene. He was with his beautiful wife, Judy, and we had just moved to Boca, and we became fast friends and regular breakfast companions on Saturday mornings after the meeting. Often on Saturdays, we would have a raucous table of AA members. The table was often overridden with loud banter and laughter coming from Merv and Jean, telling war stories of the old days, drinking in London and New York. They did all kinds of crazy escapades, as Marcia alluded to, the stories you could not make up. Jean and Merv formed a very unique friendship, and Judy and I did as well. One of the top highlights was they spent a week with us on our ranch in Wyoming, and which made quite an impression on Merv, especially the cowboys at the local AA club. And Mervyn made quite an impression on them as well, a big Londoner coming in with a cowboy hat and a ceramic chicken. The absolute beauty and the big skies and the prairies brought Merv a lot of peace, which I'd never really seen him experience. He was in awe of the beauty of the place. We went horseback riding, we laughed a lot, and it was a very memorable time for us. And there's a picture of him up there with Gene in his cowboy hat. And Merv, when my husband Gene died very suddenly in New York City, Merv and Judy were the first people to show up at the hotel to comfort me and to say, we're here to support you. And I'm forever grateful for his unquestioning support that he showed me then. And then when his beloved Judy died, I was then in turn able to keep a close watch on him and be there as a support and reciprocate the hand of support that he gave me and to help him navigate his grief as well. And that brought us very close as friends. We grew much closer over the years, and often silently we support each other as we learned to live out without our better halves. I'll always remember his humor and his affection and his sharing his sundry cookies, pastries, and croissant with me at the AA meetings, as well as all the crumbs that got spread around the floor. You were either wearing it or it was around your chair. To me, he was a pillar of hope for the newcomer of AA, always acknowledging and encouraging them with a steady message to find a power greater than themselves who can solve your problem. He was always quoting that at every meeting. That was his favorite AA line. He'll always remain in my heart, and sorry, I will miss him dearly. He's trudging the happy road of destiny now with Jean, Ken, Ben, Steve, James, and the other AA angels. Thank you.
You know, not only did he touch, Lisa's and Jean's life, but he touched all of our lives. And he touched a few people somewhat more than others. And I mean that in the nicest possible way. I'd like to take a few minutes, if I may, please, and it's a privilege that I'm very, very glad to shoulder, to read a message that's been written to me by one of those people whose life was touched the most by Mervyn's kindness and strength. And that's Sam, who many of you knew. Now, Sam's life was changed not only by the fellowship, but more particularly by the guidance, hope, kindness, and strength of Mervyn Fogel. As I know Sam would like to be with us today, he's unable to because he's living down in Colombia. So it's not possible for him to be here. So if you don't mind, I'd like to take a few minutes to read the words that Sam wrote about Mervyn. If I don't go blank, the type's too small. When I heard from Neil on Sunday morning that Mervyn had passed away, I was very, very sad. I spent the day alternating between wandering around the house without purpose and sudden outburst of tears. 3 days later, I am still sad, but the crying has stopped for now, and I'm feeling extremely grateful for having the good fortune of having a sponsor and a dear friend like Merv. 11 plus years ago, after spending 30 days in a treatment center, I walked into the Crossroads clubs in Delray Beach and saw this gentleman wearing yellow shorts, a pink shirt, and orange wristwatch, standing by the hallway, attempting to woo people into a newcomers meeting that he had recently started by offering them Dunkin' Donuts. If you knew Merv, you can imagine the scene quite clearly. He was the P.T. Barnum of recovery, always looking for something, always looking for an angle. Anything if it meant helping, anything if it meant helping a soul get sober. At the end of the meeting, and with much trepidation, I walked up to him and asked him to help me. In 55 years of my life, he was the first person, man or woman, that I ever asked for help. And he kindly extended his hand to me and became my sponsor in AA. Being Jewish means being a neurotic. And I knew at times in the beginning, I probably made him a bit crazy. Nevertheless, Mervyn loved me at a time when I was unable to love myself. He helped and loved me when I was in a deep abyss, without hope of ever climbing out. Well, I climbed out of that abyss, and he continued to love me unconditionally until he took his last breath. He taught me how to be happy and thrive in my own skin. We saw each other practically every day. Again, being Jewish meant that most of our time was spent eating. Merv never met a bagel, corned beef sandwich, or donut that he didn't like. He always knew what to say to me. I shared my darkest secrets, my fears, and my insecurities with him. I felt safe with Merv. And I was not unique in that way. I know of many, many men who are blessed to have had the same experience with Merv. He cared deeply about all of us. As time passed, we also became very close friends. When he moved to Israel and no longer could be my sponsor, we talked every week. I think he even started a meeting in Tel Aviv. As a matter of fact, he did it at 7 o'clock on the beach in Tel Aviv. He was my special confidant and friend right until the end. I was ecstatic when he returned from Israel. It was like old times. It was like family. We celebrated life together, the good and the not so good. Now Mervyn was far from perfect, but he was imperfectly perfect in my eyes. He had, as shall we say, eccentricities. He could be impatient, even downright rude at times, but I think I loved him for that too. He showed me that we were all just human beings, far from being perfect creatures. Our friendship grew closer and closer since his return from Israel. We spoke as often as he would answer the phone, which was probably 1 out of every 10 attempted calls. As annoying as that was, the moment he picked up the phone, it all melted away. We shared, we laughed, and we cried together. We signed off every call and every get-together with I love you. Mervyn, thank you for all you did for me. Thank you for helping make me a better person. I'm not sure where I would have landed had I not taken one of your donuts that day at Crossroads.
Wow.
I will not cry today because you have passed. Instead, I will smile that our relationship happened during the time we had together here on earth. It's ironic that one of the health conditions to which you succumbed was a failed heart. In my eyes, and in many others, your heart was as big as it came. A heart that failed no one. Whatever we were to each other, that we still are. We will speak of you as we always have. You will never be out of our mind just because you are out of our sight. Your legacy is all of us gathered here today and around the world who honor and celebrate you and give thanks that you came into our lives to help us, to lead us, to help us to heal our wounds. Rest well, my dear friend. I love you. You know, I think that expresses pretty much everything of how we feel. I know there are a large group of you here, and there are quite a few people on Zoom, which we were fortunate enough to be able to set up earlier in the day because we kept getting comments from people from Canada, from New York, from Tel Aviv, from others who would like to have an opportunity to express their feelings and their closeness to a man we all knew as Mervyn. So what we would like to do at this particular point is open up this celebration to all of you. You've heard enough of me talking and other people talking, so right now, it's your time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the mic away from here, and I'm going to give it to someone who has something to say, whether it is in this room or whether it is on Zoom. And please, if there is someone on Zoom, let us know so that we can bring you into the meeting and have you and allow you and have a chance for you to share as well as everybody else. So is there someone who would like to start, and I can open up the meeting to?
Actually, for the Zoom folks, it is helpful if you stand by the dais. Is that okay, or is that against the rules? Just for people to stand by the dais, because for Zoom, they'll see it
Sure.
better.
Stand up by the dais. Yeah. And I'm proud to say I was a friend of Merv's. And one I wanted to say was that I met Merv 25 years ago, and he was the first one that came up to me when I walked into a room. One of the things I loved about him and was a great tribute to him was when you walked into a room, if there was anybody new or someone you didn't know, Merv came up to you and introduced himself and made you feel welcome. I sat with Merv and heard all the stories about the IRA burning down his building and all the other stuff that went on in his life. 25 years of listening to Merv. But one of the things I love most about him was he was a terrible listener. In fact, I tested it one time because I realized when I was talking to him, he wasn't listening to a word I was saying. So in the midst of a discussion I was having about a problem, I said, and my mother died. And I went on right on. And Merv didn't flinch. He never heard a word I said. So you had to love the guy just because he was bigger than life. And I was thinking driving here today that there must be a very important meeting in AA in heaven because God took our best man. Thank you.
Very nice.
Whoever wants to go next, the mic,
Yes.
the mic gets
I'll
passed
leave.
around. Up there,
Oh, up there.
Sylvia.
Okay, hi, I'm Arlene, and I met Merv later in life because I really started coming regularly after the pandemic to the meeting. And like a lot of us mature women, I had a crush on Merv. Not just his accent, but he was so charming, so English, and so funny. And I used to be amazed at his eyeglasses. I mean, he always wore such colorful things. And when he opened his mouth, he was always very direct and always had a good message for the newcomer. Oh, I sat next to Merv at several of our affairs, that we would have to raise money for our group. And he really enjoyed his food, I know that. And he really was interested in other people, but he loved to tell stories, and I loved listening to them. And I introduced my husband to him, and I told my husband, I really have a thing for this guy. And my husband wasn't at all threatened, because Merv was friendly to him too. So I will miss Merv. I always looked for him when I came into a meeting. He always brought a certain air of je ne sais quoi. He was a sophisticated guy, and he'd seen a lot in the world, and he imparted that when he shared. So I hope he's at a great big meeting and that he's taking care of all the people who need it, because he could do that. Thanks. That's it for me.
Can you see me?
No, we can't see you, only I see you, sorry, but we can hear you.
Oh, well, you're probably the unlucky one then.
Paul, we saw the picture of you with Merv on the screen as well.
Mervyn was, I'll get this, hang on. Are you still there?
Yeah, we see you now, some people do.
Okay. Mervyn was my business partner for 20 years. So you can imagine the stories that I had to tell. I called on him in Texas Home Care in about 1982, 83, and we hit it off pretty well. He asked me to be his business partner in 1985. He said to me, you know, you wander the world looking. I was selling RTA furniture, believe it or not, from the United States to people like IKEA and the Texas Home Care. You call them flat pack furniture kits. And Mervyn said to me, you know, you wander the world looking for an item that's been missed in a market. And he said, I found a whole category. And I said, really? He said, you guys don't sell ceramic tile in the United States. He said, I think we could make a go of this. And he asked me to be his partner. Within 5 years, we were the largest vendor of ceramic tile to the big box stores, to Home Depot, Lowe's, to Menards in the United States. We did business in 43 different countries. He established a rule in our business partnership. I guess I have to say, I knew the best Mervyn Fogel. I knew him at the very, very top of his game. He taught me how to negotiate. He taught me how to treat people right. He taught me how to be tough. He was tough. He had a rule that we never bought a stick of anything from anybody unless we went and saw their factory. Unfortunately, I got the trips that were 18-hour road trips into mainland China, into Cucuta, Colombia, into, oh God, Mervyn, I love you, buddy. And Judy. Judy! Anybody remember hearing that?
Yes. Oh, it works. Yay, you got it, Rabbi. Oh, yes, yay.
No, we lost it.
Oh, okay. We'll find it.
Here we go.
I am the man I am today because of Mervyn Fogel. He's godfather to my youngest son, who is quite the kid, Naval Academy graduate, Somali pirate hunter. And today runs a $1 billion hedge fund on Wall Street. Mervyn was so good. He was so balanced. He taught my boys so much. I didn't even hear about this until midnight last night. I live in Northern California. I tried. I can't. You should be there. I'm sorry. We used to say in the industry that Mervyn was a legend in his own lunchtime. And he was, you know what, he was a man. He was a beautiful, beautiful human being. He was strong. He had lots of problems. Scared my wife to wit's end. You know, oh, he was sober 1 year when I met him, I think in 1985. And I never worried a single day about him. I took him to so many AA meetings in Stockton, California, where we were headquartered, that people thought I was a friend of Bill Wilson's. I was supposed to come down and see him. I wanted to help get some things sorted out with him in his life, and some tragic things happened to me around Christmas, and I wasn't able to make it. And I'm just ashamed I'm not there today to be with all of you. Marcia, we'll be in touch. I need to know so many things. I need to know where he is. Well, I know where he is. He's having a cigar with my dad right now. And God bless all of you for being part of his life. And God bless Mervyn Fogel. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. You echo the thoughts. You echo the thoughts of so many of us. Who's next? Anybody?
Yeah, I'm all done. Thank you.
I'll take
Well, my father used to say that you truly understand somebody by the company that they keep. And I tell everybody in my field and in my family, I've never met anyone. My name is Sonia Coburn, and I had the pleasure of being Mervyn's care manager at the end of the last year of his life, and there to solve some problems with him and for him and for his family. And through that, I got to know him in a very different way than you all do. Evidently, he was minding his P's and Q's with me quite a lot. But we grew close, and I really treasured the relationship I had with him, although being a professional. But the thing I could not get over is the friends that he has, the commitment that I saw, people driving long distances, coming almost every day, and I would go to see him and people had already been there, or I'd come to the facility and they were waiting in the waiting room, and we'd all, talk to one another. And I've been doing what I do for 33 years. I deal with a lot of people who don't have local family and don't have, the support system. I have never, ever seen somebody have the quality of friends and loving family and the people that just put themselves out. And he really loved everybody. Everybody in this room, he loved you, and he loved his family. And I also look at him as one of the most resilient people I've ever met. And I deal with everybody who's in the worst time of their life, and I rarely get to see somebody who copes well with all the bad news. It just keeps on coming. It doesn't get better, it's just, now you have to leave your home, now you have to be in a nursing home. There's all this bad news. But Mervyn was able to accept it. He had a lot of acceptance for his situation, and didn't sit there and lament so much about it like most people would. And he was an example to me. I've learned a lot from him. So I know we learned a lot about how to cope with life through the rooms, through the meetings. And it was just such a pleasure to work with him and his wonderful family.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
thank you.
So, in a certain sense, Rabbi and I were like the foil to Merv and Judy. We're so innocent, our heads are in the clouds, we don't know a lot about real life, we just have a sort of spiritual perspective, but we got along swimmingly. And Rabbi said at the funeral that the first service that we had that was not the high holidays was in the Fogels' dining room. Anybody here that was there 18 years ago? Yeah, so Judy said to me, I know about kosher, I'll double wrap the food from the marketplace, and she sure did. She self-cleaned her oven, she got everything ready, and it was fun. I mean, they had some risque art in their house, yeah. It was such a scream. And I'll tell you the most interesting thing that I've learned a tremendous amount from the Fogels, Judy included, but what I learned about, well, this is the story. I grew up in a very spiritual Hasidic tradition with beautiful parents and grandparents and tradition and meaning and vision. And one of the things that's so important is working on yourself, on your character trait. It's called musar in Jewish tradition. And yeah, we all gave it lip service. I gave it lip service. Sure, I'm working on my tolerance, not to be judgmental. But until we met the recovery community through Merv, I never knew what it means to work on yourself, to really take yourself by the hand, take responsibility for your choices, and to have this responsibility and what is it called when you accountability? That's the word I want to say. So I feel like it's a tremendous blessing in our lives to have known the Fogels. We have lots of friends in the recovery community. I have a little bit of an insight just from these 18 years that we know. If there was anybody at Chabad who was floundering and didn't have a sponsor, he said, sure. And he took some people under his wing, and he was extremely generous hearted. He had a huge neshama, a huge heart. And I learned a lot from him, and also I learned about what it means to be a transformative mensch, and that's what my husband spoke about at the funeral today, transformation. One more thing, which is just so amazing, because if you don't believe in divine providence, this is incredible. So we've had all these connections with the community, and we told Merv we'd love to have a meeting here. But then he said, if you're having a meeting here, it has to always be the same night. And we've had classes, and we have programs or lectures or Jewish holidays, and it never worked out for us to be able to commit our space every single week at the exact same time. But it was something we tried to do. Okay, our son-in-law just moved down here about 8 months ago to join us, outreach, he's a marvelous guy, and he has such a heart for kids in recovery. He went to the kosher market, he met a man. The man said, I'm in a halfway house half the time, part of the day I'm busy, the rest of the day I have nothing to do. So my son-in-law started studying with him and meeting with him, and then he saw that there were quite a few other young men in this residence who also didn't have what to fill their time with. So he asked, do you mind if we start doing some programs at Chabad for this? We'd like, yes, please. The first program that we ever did in our space, this space, for people in recovery happened the day that Merv died. Is that eerie or what? It's as Rabbi said, it's just continuing Merv's mission and the tremendous love and how much he wanted to help people and the heart that he had. And we are very humbled and touched by Merv. I am immensely moved. And Merv, he made us laugh. We just cracked up at each other. And it was an honor to know Merv and to know Judy. And finally the boys, Gevald. I didn't even believe you existed. Marcia we had met before, even though, and we met your grandmother, but you guys, finally. So yeah, Merv is amazing, and he definitely had the great merit to uplift people, and we will always remember him here.
Thank you.
Is there anybody on the screen who'd like on the Zoom?
Zoomies, would you like to speak up? I don't think so. Steve has his hand up. Let's see.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you help us see you? Can you can you get off? Can you come on video, Steve?
Stephen Fogel, I think.
Thank you.
Yes.
Can you turn the camera?
It's a rare privilege to see me at this time of night, because it's...
Can you adjust your camera?
Yes, provided you're prepared to see me wearing my pajamas.
Yes.
Great, good, excellent. Well, actually, I'm manipulating the camera. There we are. Well, my name is Stephen, and I'm a cousin. And I'm 12 years younger. My name is Mervyn Fogel, and my first proper encounter with Mervyn was as a very young man. My brother and I were involved in a boat accident which severely injured my mother, who is still alive. She's 93, and she sends her love to Marcia and to the family, and she's very sorry that she is not there, as we all are. Here in London. But after that accident, I was sent to stay with Marcia and Mervyn. And this was my first encounter with Mervyn as a drummer. As Mervyn practically dominated the house with his drumming, which was loud and long, but nonetheless had an influence on my musical taste afterwards. Mervyn was always a very keen jazz man, and actually had an influence on our middle son George, who pursued a musical career, and he was very taken with Mervyn and Mervyn's taste. We were a very tight-knit family. There were 3 brothers. Marcia would have mentioned this today. Mervyn's father Sidney, my father Gerald, and Manny. And they worked together in the business. And Mervyn, when he was very young, was admitted to the business. And actually, I think it was my dad who trained Mervyn and had an enormous affection for him. Great admiration for Mervyn, for his flair, for his imagination, and for really being a dreamer who was able to realize his dreams and make them concrete. The other thing I realized when I came to stay in Gloucester Drive with Mervyn and Marsha was that really Mervyn was everything that I'm not. He was entrepreneurial throughout his life. He was spontaneous to the finest degree, and he was hyper-witty, as has been mentioned. No one could really match that. I tried to at Mervyn's 70th birthday, where he asked me to do a roast, and he was such a good sport. I remember saying that Mervyn, in fact, was a mythical beast, half man, half alcohol. In recent years, I've, together with the family, been able to have the privilege of seeing Mervyn from time to time. In London, he would come every couple of years for a Friday night. Making arrangements with Mervyn was really like lifting mercury with a fork. It was extremely difficult, but it was worthwhile once you made the arrangement. And he was great fun to have around, and all the things you've heard. So I would just like to say, love from us in London, love from Joan, love from my children, love from my brother David and his wife Jo, who I see on the, I never see them at this time of night, but there they are. They're also on the screen. And love from our family. Our thoughts are with Marsha and with the boys. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to say these things about Mervyn.
Is like Sam. One of these people whose closeness with Mervyn is akin to all of us. And to have JR here with us is a treat. And with that, let me just pass the mic.
Hi, I'm JR. How are you? Thanks for having me. I'm sorry I'm running late.
Here, come up so that people on the Zoom can see you.
Okay. Where do I stand? Stand.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
All right. Thank you for having me. It's an honor and privilege to be here and to be friends and family of Mervyn Fogel, as well as Judy. What a life, you know, what an absolute privilege it was to be alongside Mervyn. Through my journey, I've known Mervyn about 15 years. I'm sure most everybody in here has that and some, probably. But Mervyn, you know, was highly decorated and you know, a lot of fun to be around. You know, he was contagious. You know, his and he really loved. You know, he really did. He loved his family. He loved his children, his sister, his wife, and you know, just the journey that he went through. I was happy to be part of it. You know, from my beginning until you know, until his recent days. So yeah, my you know, we started out as friends, and you know, he knows my family as well. You know, it just kind of goes on and on. He is, you know, Mervyn's worldwide. You know, he is what I could think of when I was on the way here was iconic. Is really what came to mind for me. You know, he was, you know, from sea to signing she. I mean, he was in Europe, in Marin County, in Palm Beach County, Boca, Palm Beach. I mean, everybody knew him, it was really a privilege to be able to break bread with him, to get to know his story, and he introduced me to everybody he could, and really paved the way for me. I'm eternally grateful, and I too know that he was grateful that I was there, in the latter days, between his facilities and and his health care and everything. We would just do the best we can to keep a smile on our face and just kind of deal with whatever was coming. And I took a photo of him every time I saw him, even when he was in his whether it's physical therapy or in hospitals, and I'm just a shameless selfie, him and I, just to keep the mood light, and I have one. How you doing? I have one just a couple days ago, and it's his memory and his spirit will live on for a very long time, and I'm ecstatic to put a lot of names with faces, see a lot of people again, and I know that this is just a special moment, and a hard moment for But I'm grateful for the unconditional love that he showed me, and that I was able to return it in any type of way. But my family and myself is eternally grateful for Mervyn, and so thank you for having me up here today. Sorry I'm late.
Thanks, JR. The party's a little bit better for having you finally get here. We were hoping you'd be able to, but I wasn't sure. Is there anybody?
Greg. Hey, Greg. Grateful to be here today, and grateful to see you all, and my condolences to the family. It's nice to meet you as well. Just a couple of really quick things about Merv. I met Merv about 4 years ago, 4.5, 5 years ago, and I walked into a meeting, and like so many of us, I'm beaten up and despairing, and he was the first guy that came across the room to say hello. When he was way across the other side of the room, and after the meeting made a beeline over to talk to me. He could see, I didn't say anything, but he could see that I was suffering. And it's interesting because it meant a lot to me. It made the difference, I think, between, part of the difference between staying and not staying. And that's a life or death thing. And it's really great to hear. David talked about the same thing. 25 years ago, Merv did that to him. And you heard it in Sam's message to us 15 years ago. He was that first guy for Sam. And we like to say in AA that it's service that keeps us sober, but not many people do it the way that Merv did. It's like you hear these stories about people who saved a bunch of kids during the war or got people out of Germany, whatever it is, right? In his own subtle way, that's what Merv did over the years. He saved people just by caring and by sticking his hand out and saying welcome, which I'm super grateful for. And then I'll just tell you a funny story. When I used to hang around with Merv, the stories always, royalty and rock stars and businessmen. And, I'm a bit of a bullshitter myself, and it takes one to know one. And I always assumed that he was, playing fast and loose with the facts, that he never let facts come in the way of a good story. So a couple of years ago, I was over in London, and I was staying in Notting Hill. And I went to a meeting, and I was standing outside the meeting, and I met a guy named Roger. We shook hands, and we talked a bit, and just shooting the shit. And I said, "Hey, do you happen to know a guy named Merv Fogel?" "Merv," he says, "everybody knows Merv." And I said, "Wow." I said, "Well, he really likes to talk about all the rock stars and the royalty he knew. Is there any truth to any of it when he was here in the 60s and the 70s? And he said, "Well," he said, "I'll just tell you a story." He said, "I was standing right here, Portobello Road, famous meeting there." He said, "We were standing outside having a smoke. This big black Rolls-Royce limousine just rolls slowly down the street. It stops in front of the meeting. The doors open. Merv gets out on one side, Elton John gets out the other. They go up the stairs to the meeting, come back down, get back into the Rolls Royce, and off they go. And he said that. He said, well, when I heard that story, I just realized I probably should. I should stop doubting what Merv had to say. Anyway, it's this is a really beautiful day. It's a combination for me of a message about how powerful a person can be if they just are willing to share and to be of service, and also just what joy he brought to everybody through his fun and his stories and his wit. So happy to be here, and my condolences again.
Thank you.
So on behalf of Richard and Alan Fogel, my brothers, and myself, to Marsha, wishing you a long life, and to Jeremy, James and Neil, wishing you and all your families a long life.
Hi, my name is Anne Michelle, friend of Merv's, and I'm a Roman Catholic. And Judy and Merv's funeral in Shiva were the first Jewish traditional ceremonies that I have attended, and I thought they were very beautiful. The prayers, it was very meaningful, and it meant a lot to me. So thank you for that. I'm going to, Greg had one story. I've been thinking since Sunday, one of my favorite stories of Merv. We came into the rooms 40 years ago, so we share the same year, 40 years. And we met each other at Bethesda at the Sea in Palm Beach. Had a lot of breakfast, lunch, and dinners with Steve and Greg and some of the ladies from Boca. One day I was in Starbucks on Atlantic Avenue in Delray. Merv had invited me for a coffee, and I went in and sat down, and as you know, there's like 100 restaurants on that street and lots of traffic. So he said, "Anne Michelle, you'll never believe it. One day I was in the car and I ran out of gas right here on Atlantic Avenue, and and this was true, like you said, all these, Marsha, are true stories." So he said, "Anne Michelle, I got out of the car and I went to the car behind me, and the guy rolled down his window, and it was Ringo Starr. And Ringo said, 'Merv, what are you doing here?'" And he said, "Well, I live in Delray." And Ringo said, "I live in Delray. I just bought a house here." And Merv said, "Well, I live here too." So, I mean, these are like 1 in a million type things that can happen. Merv had many gifts. I think from a woman's point of view, his biggest gift was working with men in the program. I know that he sponsored over 100 men at one time. I don't know how much more than 100, but he was very proud about being a certified sober coach also. One thing, when we were at the cemetery today, I had met Neil last year, and I went, none of us knew that 2 of Merv's 3 sons were identical twins until today. And one of the guys said it's Merv's last wink to us from the cemetery. It was such a treat to see that. And I said, "Hi, Neil." He said, "No, I'm not Neil." And I'm like, what did I miss here? And all of this. So I'm happy to see you all, and my condolences to your family. Happy that you could get here so quickly from Israel, which is not that easy these days. So thank you.
Thanks, Reed. Great to see the family here. I've heard so much about you from there's an expression in Alcoholics Anonymous called no crosstalk, and it was one that Mervyn taught me, really. It means don't play off other people's testimony, but just from your own heart, from your own that's one way of looking at it. UAA, people can tell me more with your better experience. But Mervyn taught me everything I knew about treatment, about understanding what it is to be an alcoholic or addict. He was the maestro for that, absolutely in every way. And like I say, no crosstalk, and yet so many of you have touched upon things that we need to say. Sonia, I think you talked about his incredible resiliency. My wife said he was one of the strongest men she'd met, and she was fortunate enough, to dine with him and Judy in Manhattan. I got to know Judy very well. No crosstalk. Stephen Fogel in your pajamas in London. You mentioned, I wasn't entrepreneurial, but I learned so much about being an entrepreneur from what he said. And I would sit with him and he'd talk to me about the West Midlands where I was growing up. And he'd tell me about how he had this epiphany in Dudley, of all places, this black country town in West Midlands, about Texas Home Care, I guess, and some of the incredible business initiatives he made that your family has touched upon. And I learned enough to actually ghostwrite a book about him, but it's rather rare, and I don't know if anyone's seen it, but we'll get copies if you can, because the stories were manifold. The stories were extraordinary. I would sit with him on his couch and say, you didn't upset Tony Bennett like that, did you?
Are you talking about the book Thirsty?
Yes, I'm afraid I am, yes.
Yeah, Paul just shared it with me yesterday.
Oh, he did.
I have it
That's
covered.
great. Yeah, okay.
I know it was good for a synagogue, so I...
But again, like Anne Michelle, I'm Catholic and I embrace your beautiful Jewish traditions today, and I learned so much about the Jewish faith from Mervyn, of all people, right? And he was so proud of you three boys, and talked so much about you. And like I believe you said, Jeremy, I mean, just the football and the tennis. I'll so miss watching. I watched the Wimbledon final with him last year. 2 years ago, and he said that was the greatest game of tennis I've ever seen. And we talked about that for a long time. But of course, also he was so absent-minded. Arsenal would score, and then he'd look at me and say, "What's the score? When did Arsenal score?" I mean, he was just an extraordinary force of nature, and I'll miss him terribly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, but there's one common thread between everyone that's in this room, and that thread is what Mervyn has done for everyone that we will never ever forget. I'm blessed to be able to be here. I'm blessed to have had 36 years with Mervyn. Some of them I liked, some of them I didn't like. Some of them I fought with, and some of them I laughed with. But most of all, I loved them all. And as we leave here tonight, we're not saying goodbye to Mervyn. We're saying goodnight. Because somewhere I sort of believe that he's up there starting a newcomer meeting with God, figuring God could use a little help and he needs it badly. But Mervyn wanted to be a CEO and a big deal in one various company or another. And he wanted that to be his legacy. But Mervyn had a bigger legacy than that. Mervyn had a purpose. God put Mervyn on earth for him to do things that other people didn't know how to do. As I said earlier this afternoon, Mervyn lived the AA tradition. He lived the AA pledge, which states that I am responsible. When anyone anywhere reaches out for help, I want the hand of AA always to be there. And with Mervyn, that hand of AA was always there. I think I speak for Marcia and James and Neil and Jeremy when I say, God bless Mervyn, we love you and we'll miss you. And I'd also would be remiss if I didn't thank so many people who helped to make this evening possible. There's no way that I can find words nice enough or adequate enough to thank the Rabbi and Shana for everything that they have done for us. Because without them, this wouldn't have happened. We wouldn't have had a place to have this venue. We wouldn't perhaps have had the service that we did. we wouldn't have had a Zoom call, which we didn't put together until the middle of the day today, and people from around the world wouldn't have had an opportunity to talk about Mervyn. And Mervyn wouldn't have had a talk to say, they're all talking about me again. But thank you all for being here. May God bless you, and may He keep you. And could I ask the Rabbi if he's around to close this with a prayer, if he doesn't mind?
We're going to conclude with the Keil Moli Rachamim prayer, the prayer that we recited at the end of the funeral service. So if you can comfortably do so, please rise. And just a reminder, if you can join us, we're going to have a prayer service so that Kaddish can be recited shortly after the service, the memorial service here ends. So if you can stay behind, you can be part of the quorum, part of the minyan, be greatly appreciated. Shoyechein meroimim hamitzei menucha nechayna al kanfei hashchina b'maloi sakedoishim utehoirim kezoyad harakia mazirim es nishmas David ben Shlomo shehalach li'eloi davor shenod tzedakah biyad hazkaras nishmosoi began Eden tehei menuchasoi Lachein balorachamim yastireyu b'seiser kenafav li'olamim Diyitzroir bitzroir achayim es nishmosoi Adonai unachalosoi v'yanuach al mishkavoi v'shalom v'neimar amen. O God, full of compassion, who dwells on high, grant true rest upon the wings of the Shekhinah, the divine presence, in the exalted spheres of the holy and pure, who shine as the resplendence of the firmament, to the soul of David, the son of Shlomo, Mervyn Fogel, who has gone to his supernal world, for charity has been donated in remembrance of his soul. May his place of rest be in Gan Eden. Therefore, may the All-Merciful One shelter him with the cover of his wings forever, and bind his soul in the bond of life. The Lord is his heritage. May he rest in his resting place in peace. And let us say Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Are you going to have a menu now?
Dinah, are you there?
Nope, gone. Oh, yeah. Hi, Paul, here I am.
Shina, can I just spend a moment with Marcia?
Absolutely, let me get you off the loudspeaker.
Okay.
How do I do this here? No, but even so, if you want to go here. Let me see if she's a minute, because we're saying goodbye to our guests.
Oh, I don't know how.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, you can't talk, touch the ribbon, so